Do you yearn for travel that involves outdoor adventure and learning? I do. I also have a passion for all things farming and agriculture. I've traveled to exotic jungles to learn about growing chocolate. I even once owned my own organic vegetable and sunflower farm. And now I'm planning my journey back to agriculture. Agritourism, defined as travel that involves some type of agricultural experience. Agritourism is all about entertaining. But the marketing strategist in me knows that at its core, agritourism is really about educating, and education affects change. My future farm needs to deliver a profound experience to all of its visitors. It needs to educate people about food, health, and climate. Join me to learn from experienced agritourism farmers and entrepreneurs and help me build my future farm strategy. And who knows, maybe one day soon you'll find yourself in a tropical jungle cutting open cacao pods with a machete, or savoring an outdoor plant-to-plate community dinner with 100 guests at a farm in Illinois. So let's tap into the agritourist in you. Welcome. This is your agritourist host, Jen Ross. Dori Scofield is the founder of Savor Animal Rescue in Long Island, New York, a nonprofit that has been serving the Long Island community when it comes to dog and cat rescue and rehoming for over 24 years. Dori's connection and compassion for animals is and will always be a significant part of her life journey. I have known Dori for many years. I have watched her lead, innovate, fight for, and be the voice for animals, sometimes vocally, but more so through real action. She most recently manifested her vision to create an animal sanctuary with the focus on compassion and action for animals facing slaughter. She is putting faces and personalities to these amazing animals. Located in Peru, Massachusetts, Berkshire Farm Sanctuary is spread over 20 acres and is currently the home to several sheep, pigs, and goats that are near and dear to Dori's heart. Dori has a beautiful farmhouse Airbnb on the property where guests can stay and connect with the animals and savor the exquisite beauty of the Berkshires. Dori plans to expand the sanctuary in the coming years to include horses and other animals, host weddings and events, and possibly integrate a thrift store, candle shop, and a place to host local art. However, her mantra in her businesses and many projects has always been that slow and steady wins the race, and she is applying that same mantra to Berkshire Farm Sanctuary. She and her team are focused on creating a sustainable environment for the animals to thrive and happily and healthily live out their lives. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dori Scofield. So, Dori, welcome. I have known you for a bunch of years, and I've known you as the owner and founder of Save a Pet in Port Jeff, and also a brief stint with the Brookhaven Animal Shelter. But I want to know a little bit more about your backstory. Where's Dori from? What brought you to the animal world? And, what was the passion behind all this? So give me a little bit about your background.
So I grew up on Long Island. If you can't tell by my accent, I'll give you that info. And I was literally one of those kids that was born with a passion for animals. I drove my parents crazy. I brought home every stray. I had all the injured wildlife when I was a kid, saving them, always saving animals. When I graduated high school, I was going to go to vet school. And I got the opportunity to work at a dog grooming shop. So I was only 17, so I took it and I loved it. I was show grooming standard poodles and really getting hands-on with animals. And then I opened my own grooming shop in Shoreham. This was back in 1979, Jen. And I had that for several years until I started my family having kids. And then I did grooming and boarding at home. But I always had a passion to have rescue. And when I had my grooming shop in Shoreham, I devoted a lot of time to helping Kent Animal Shelter out in Calverton. And I've known Pam for literally 40 years plus. And I used to say, gotta have a shelter over towards me, So finally, we started one, me and my other friend, Gerda, and we started Save a Pet in Port Jeff. And that was in 1993. that we started, and we got the building in the year 2000. So that began a full animal rescue career for me. And I love it. And I don't regret any of my choices because I learned so much and I get to save them instead of worrying about having to be a veterinarian and all that. I'd much rather be on this end of rescue.
So when you started Save a Pet, which is focused on mostly dogs and cats, correct? When you started Save a Pet, what were some of the trepidation about starting that? Because that's a big venture to take on.
It was a huge venture. We had zero money. We had enough money to put a down payment on the building, which literally that time was like $20,000, I think. We put 10,000 in of our money. But to afford the mortgage payments, I groomed dogs in the back building every day. All that money that I blood, sweat, and tears doing grooming went back into the shelter. So it was fun. It was great. I was a lot younger, and eventually, with the word of mouth and getting donations, sending out little mailers, doing it the real grassroots hard way. And I totally recommend that for anybody starting an animal rescue or any kind of charity. Do the grassroots way. Slow and steady wins the race.
Yep. So Save a Pet is still around. Tell us where you're at with Save a Pet, and then we'll talk a little bit about your other
Sure.
ventures.
So we have been there for 24 years now.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
It is. And in that time, we have rescued and rehomed over 40,000 companion animals.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
That's a number that I'm super proud of. And we have a great staff. We have great volunteers. And through time and donations, thankfully, we were able to pay the mortgage off. So that was a big chunk. And, but the expenses are never ending. You don't think of things when you just want to save animals. You got to have insurance. You got to have workers' comp. You got to have all those incidentals that you have with any business. And, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that I have to write these stupid bills out too. But
then you have all the bills of the animals that you're rescuing.
Transport bills, everything every little thing costs a lot of money. And in this economy, it's been real tough since 2020. It's been tough.
Now you briefly also worked at Brookhaven Animal.
Yes, I had
shelter.
An opportunity to work at Brookhaven as the supervisor, and I loved it. I loved trying to make a difference. And like Brookhaven is the largest town in the state of New York, per capita, and it's a animal shelter filled with like so many pit bulls and pit bull mixes, and that is an insurmountable task to try to place them and in responsible homes. And it's not just about getting dogs homes and cats homes, it's about getting them the right home, responsible pet ownership. So I did that for a few years. When my son passed away in 2011, I was really overwhelmed and decided to leave there and go back to Save a Pet and where my heart and soul is for work. And, I have no regrets about that. A time I had there at Brookhaven, it was fabulous. And I do miss it.
What do you think I mean, I know because I was volunteering at the time you were there and I saw the impact, but what do you think was your greatest impact there?
I think a lot of it was awareness. I mean, we had some awesome events. We started the Brookhaven, it was the Brookhaven Bully Alliance. And we We really did a lot of education on pit bulls. We had an aggressive spay neuter program. Remember, we were spaying and neutering them at Save a Pet free for the pet owners of pit bulls. And I think just my presence being there and leading off with compassion and empathy, and rather than being a town employee, a government worker, which I'm not, and I never will be. I think we really made an impact. And
I
there's a
agree.
lot of people there now, and that I was able to bring on. So I felt good about, where I left off. And I had an amazing supervisor. Mark Lesko was the supervisor at the time. He supported everything I did. Tony Galino was my direct supervisor. He was amazing. I had really good people, and they believed in me, and that helped.
And that makes a huge difference. So before we venture on, your world is very challenging to navigate. There's a lot of opinions. I guess what's been some of the challenges that you've faced over the years with Save a Pet and, owning and navigating the world of rescue? It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I think two of the biggest challenges is it's one job that you can't leave when you leave work. It follows you home. It breaks your heart. It never gets easier. And I think actually, Jen, as the older I get, the more empathetic I am to animals. And that's what led me to my next venture, the sanctuary.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other challenge, and I'm sure a lot of charities would agree with this, is the financial part. Keeping the money coming in, donors, having them believe in what you do and follow you. And now there's social media, and I wish I could hire somebody to do our social media. Two reasons I don't, though. One is I know the story. I know it from my heart. I know how I want to express it. And it's so time sensitive. Everything is time sensitive. We have this dog now, this dog we need to raise funds for, or this dog needs a home, or this cat has an injury. But it's time consuming, and it's become such a vast part of everybody's businesses, including animal rescue.
But to your point, it really does need to be you or the people doing it every day. It needs to come from you. And that's where you find success in social media. It's sometimes I'm not against hiring people, but if those people are part of your organization and there for the day to day, it makes a difference. But if they're not, and you're sending pictures or what, it doesn't have the impact. Plus, you're speaking from your heart and soul, and people feel that.
And absolutely.
And
By the time I send a picture to somebody and tell them a story, I might as well just put it up myself.
Exactly. So before we go on to Berkshire, you've had horses at your home, correct? So have you had that special connection with horses?
Our connection with horses started when my girls were little, and they started horseback riding. I rode for a little while, and they started horse showing. And then, of course, we got ponies for them, and I didn't want to sell the ponies. And so we wound up I rescued 3 miniature horses. So we have those. And we have my daughter Christina's show pony and my daughter Cassie's thoroughbred, off the track thoroughbred that she got. So those horses are here with me on Long Island. And I just love animals. Doesn't stop at dogs and cats.
Now, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I know didn't you have a fire at one point?
In 2008, Gary and I were out to dinner celebrating his retirement. And my daughter called hysterical that the house is on fire. We were in St. James. By the time we left the restaurant, got to my house was maybe 7 minutes, and my house was destroyed. In a matter of 2 hours, it was there was nothing left, and all my animals were in there. My dog, my one Corso that came with me everywhere, Gianni. I remember that night. It was hot, and I told him, "You stay home." I gave him a bone. I said, "We'll see you in a little while." And then I had all my little dogs. I had one of my cats, and I had three foster kittens that were almost ready to be adopted. And it was one of my most devastating tragedies. Unfortunately, not the only one. But we did rebuild. I wouldn't leave the property because the horses were fine. And I had feral cats, and I wouldn't leave the property. So I said, I'm either going to pitch a tent and stay here, or we can get a double wide trailer up our skinny little dead end road and stay there. And that's what my husband did. He's like, we'll get it up. We'll figure it out. And then we rebuilt on the same property, which I love. And, started from scratch. I don't even care about the house. My animals and every memory of my kids' childbirth, every photograph, videos, birthdays, gone. All I have of my kids growing up is up here in my head and in my heart, because I don't have any evidence of it, except for like my mother-in-law had some photos, but it was just devastating.
I can't imagine. Your husband obviously has been a big support through all these adventures.
He is an amazing support, and he's extremely talented in fixing things and building things, which has come in very handy. He built all the kennels at Save a Pet when we first opened, and now I have him up at the farm every chance. He's golfing today. But after the house burned down in 2008, the happy retirement literally only lasted that day. He had to go back to work so we could afford a new house and everything else. So he went back to work for several years. Now he's officially retired, golfing, and he helps me out as much as he can.
Yeah, you put him back to work.
I was crazy, but I was crazy, Jen, back when we got married. I had all my dogs at my wedding. I had 3 dogs, big dogs. They all were at the wedding. They all came on the honeymoon, so there was no surprises.
I love it.
I was who I am now 40 years ago.
Well, that's great, though. So let's talk about this new venture. And I know it's not completely new, but let's talk about, so what was your vision? Like obviously you had Save a Pet, you were working with the cats and dogs, and you had your horses. What was the vision for this sanctuary? What was in your head that you were trying to manifest?
In my head, I just wanted to expand upon what I have. Now, at Save a Pet, we have 2 paralyzed dogs. We started out with 4. One got adopted and one passed away. I went on vacation in Mexico, and not like a normal person, I came home with 4 paralyzed dogs instead of souvenirs. Those were my souvenirs. And
only you.
It was just, this is why I shouldn't go to any islands. I shouldn't leave the house, actually. I should just go. But they were, we have Crumbs and Manchitas, and they were kind of my inspiration, because animals that have handicaps aren't as easily adopted. And I've had them now since 2018. They're growing old at the shelter. And I wanted to build something that could expand for animals like them. And because I have the horses and I do know a lot about what happens with, horses, and obviously I'm vegan. So I'm against the whole factory farming and the way the world has just been consumed by animal uh, factories, literally factories. I have always had chickens. I love my chickens. They're amazing pets. And I know a lot of Long Islanders have chickens now, and I hope that they see what I see in these animals. And so I said, I want to get a piece of property that we can use to help these animals that, again, have no voice, whether they're handicapped, whether they're farm animals. So obviously on Long Island, that was not happening unless I had millions of dollars to buy a farm here, which I wish I could have done, because that would be really convenient. But why would I do something convenient? Couldn't afford it. That's why. So we've had our lake house up in the Berkshires, a little tiny lake house. So I've been back and forth to Massachusetts for the last 30 years, and I love it up there. It's just so pretty. Right now, I wish the snow would go away, but it hasn't. So I actually, when we got our house, that's a whole nother long story. It was actually my parents' lake house. And my son Danny and my son David and my daughters, we love going up there. But they had sold it when my dad got cancer, and I always regretted not being able to buy it. So in 2015, I always kept an eye on that house, and I just went on, and it was on Zillow. And I almost keeled over because, I lost my entire everything here. And my daughter and I went up to see it. Jen, everything was as my parents left it because they sold it lock, stock, and barrel. It had two owners after my parents sold it. Nobody threw anything out. Everything was my mother and father's. And the anchor that my sons made with their names carved in it, we found it in the lake. It was just one of those like those God wink moments that are rare. And so we bought it, and we've enjoyed it now with the kids. I have a photo of my son Danny, a painting of him out on the ice that my daughter had done for me on the lake. And so he's always with us there. I feel him there. Anyway, so that realtor that we bought the house from, I contacted her about looking for property for Sanctuary, Susan Deacon, who is an amazing realtor. If anybody goes to the Berkshires, you call Susan. She looked and looked and looked. We looked at several places. And I thought that since I'm buying way up here, there's going to be a million places with barns. Guess what? There aren't. The barns are dilapidated. The barns are renovated into apartments. The barns are garages. There's not that many properties in our budget, that's for sure. I mean, if I had millions of dollars, maybe. But we were looking for something under $500,000. And Susan called me and she said, I think I found the place. It's in Peru. And I said, Peru? Where the heck is Peru? I have never heard of that town in the Berkshires. She goes, just come see it. Just come see it. So I went there in February of 2020. Life was great.
A month later, it wasn't.
Put a deposit down. I had a beautiful barn, needed a lot of renovating, but within, our capabilities. Nothing dilapidated to the point where we're screwed, literally. Beautiful house. And so we did. We put the deposit down, very excited. Boom! A month later, the entire world shuts down. And I was in a panic because now, I had Save a Pet to worry about. Now we have money that's non-refundable. Do we just cut bait and lose $20,000 that I couldn't afford to lose? But we didn't. We said, me, I was like, I got to do this. I got to. So we did it. We managed to do it, and and that was 2020. We closed in June with masks on, and we've been working ever since to get the farm the way we want it. And I realize now, which is something else people who venture into a nonprofit or a charity have to get in their skulls, unless they have millions of dollars. You have to be grateful for what you do get done and stop projecting on what's not done. Stop saying, well, once we do this or once we do that. So right now we fixed up 2 of the barns. We have 15 sheep, and we have goats, and we have pigs. I don't have horses yet, because when you buy a farm, you don't realize the fencing all sucks. So we have renovated a ton of the fencing, and I have one more big pasture to renovate and a barn to renovate, because I want to put the sheep in a different barn and then put horses and other livestock rescued into the main barn. So it's a work in progress. And when you said your new venture, it really is a new venture. We've only been there a couple of years. I feel like we just started this, but we have been there a few years. It's slow to try to get things going on such a budget.
So how many acres is it?
So it's 22 acres. And we have one building that was a big wood shop, which is what I would like to transform into a kennel for companion animals. And we have the 2 main barns, a huge running shed that I want to turn into a sheep barn. And we have the farmhouse, which was the first thing. I went in, painted, fixed up, got everything on Let Go and Craigslist, and made it something that we could use for an Airbnb to make income, to keep the property going.
And how is that going?
If it wasn't for that, I don't think we'd have survived. The first year we did the Airbnb, we made $25,000 on just the Airbnb our first year. The second year wasn't as good, because now people were starting to travel back outside their confines of local, and they would start flying again and going other places. But that has been the main sustenance for keeping the sanctuary going.
Do you think so? If someone does stay in the house through Airbnb, do they get the experience of being on an animal sanctuary? Like, what is the experience that you're really promoting there?
So the experience that we are promoting is compassion in action for all these animals who literally were facing slaughter, every single one of them, except a few of the sheep. But the rest were all set for the dinner plate. And we tell everybody, each animal's story, how we got them, and, their needs, and why it's so important that we see their faces, because if every school took kids to a slaughterhouse as a field trip, I think we'd have a lot more people on a plant-based diet, because, out of sight, out of mind. And that's not what we want. We want to educate, promote this lifestyle, and provide a sanctuary life, a great life for the animals that do come to Berkshire Farm Sanctuary. Because I can collect a whole bunch of animals, Jen. I can fill that place up tomorrow. But what kind of quality am I giving these animals? And it's not about quantity, because I could get thousands of them. It's about the quality for the ones that we have. Being able to provide everything they need, from medical to feed to enough pasture. A lot goes into it. And it's just like an animal shelter, I'm not going to be a hoarding facility. I want to help these animals and treat them like my own, which every one of them is to me, ours. Raising funds for the farm is tough because you don't always get new animals. So you have the same animals, same pigs, same sheep. So it's been challenging. If anybody out there has any ideas on grants for farm sanctuaries, please send them to me because we could definitely use it.
Have you worked? I know there are several sanctuaries. Have you worked with any sanctuaries in the area close to you or in New York?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Farm Sanctuary, and I went there years and years ago, and that's what got me into being vegetarian and eventually vegan. They are like the standard of farm sanctuaries, and they are a wealth of information. So if somebody's imitation is the best form of flattery. So if somebody's doing it right, that's what you want to do. You want to bring on people that even know more than you. I think Martha Stewart said that. If you have a business and there's somebody with more knowledge, bring them in because that's going to promote your business in general. And our caretaker, Rachel, she knows more than me when it comes to farm animals. She's amazing. So I'm so blessed to have her and the volunteers that we have. And there are a few other local sanctuaries. Another new one just opened up. So I'm looking forward to going and visiting them. And we all I think in the sanctuary world, it's a big open network and it's been great.
Excellent. So do you, besides the Airbnb, do you do any other programs at the farm or do you plan on doing any other programs at the farm?
Oh, right now we're working on a humane education program for schools. And there's a few that I've seen that are really cool and I want to get going on that. I have a school teacher on our board of directors, so she's been handed that task and she's got complete compassion and empathy. So we're going to work on that because that's the future. The future is who we have to educate. And as far as other programs go, just fundraising. I was talking to my husband this morning. I would love to do weddings at the farm, and that will help us, make money, rent out the property. But again, once I have the fencing done, and I want things a certain way before I'd have a wedding there. And we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, that's a great opportunity. I mean, you have to look at all these opportunities to help
Absolutely.
sustain and grow and
Well,
complete
yeah,
your vision.
basically, it's not to me, but to most people, it's the middle of nowhere. So we're in the middle of nowhere. We want everybody to know that we exist. So that's the tough part, getting the awareness out there. Again, social media and fundraising and networking with local businesses. So it's a lot. We got our foot in the door, and I didn't want to come in with gangbusters. Look at us, here we are, everybody. I'm not that kind of person. I'm like, let's do it slow and steady, wins the race, just like savor.
Where are you, your Airbnb customers, where are they coming from? All over or
Yeah,
predominantly down here?
they're coming from. We get a lot from New York City. I've had them from out of state. People come in for weddings and stuff. They rent the Airbnb. Massachusetts is a big state. We get a lot of people from the Boston area. Just a lot of people that come to the Berkshires for vacations and want a nice respite, which it really is. It's a house of love.
Do you see yourself retiring there? Although I don't think the word retire is in your vocabulary. Do you see yourself?
I might retire.
That will never happen, Dori, so forget it.
I'll ever retire. But I would 100% retire there. But I have 3 kids here on Long Island and grandchildren now. So that's going to be tough. So in the meantime, I go back and forth.
Okay.
I have Save a Pet too. So I have Save a Pet here, Berkshire Farm Sanctuary up there. I have great people that run Save a Pet, great people that are at the farm. I just go back and forth and back and forth. And they're like, since January, I've been there every week. I'm going as soon as we're done with this.
Okay.
I was going last week. There was inches of snow. I couldn't go up there. So
when you go up there, what's your typical day like up there?
So there is no such thing. Because right now we have a problem with the well, so I got to deal with that. Or we could have a problem with one of the animals breaking out. It's like Fort Knox up there. You have to, when you have 600-pound pigs, you got to make sure that it's solid because they can break out of anything. They are dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs. They're just dinosaurs. And if they want to get out, they'll get out. But yeah, it's always fixing something. It's always adding something, cleaning something. I tell people 80% of running animal sanctuary, animal shelter is cleaning. All you do is clean. And I'm a nut. And like I go into Save That. Why is this here? Why is that there? We got to put this away. You got to put that away. You got to clean this. Got to clean that. And I'm the same up there.
So I have two final questions. One, who's your favorite? I know that's a hard question, but who stands out among the crowd of animals up in Berkshire Animal Sanctuary for you?
I would have to say Cecil and Beanie. They're they're 3 years old now. See, two babies. My goats that I rescued and I bottle fed from birth. So, and they were the first animals on the farm, Jen. They were kind of the beginning of something special. And
Excellent.
I hope that people, will go to our website, which I did all by myself. So that is, again, at a necessity. And learn about us, come visit us, check out our Airbnb, and please consider a donation because I don't take a salary from there at all. Every penny that we get goes to the animals.
Excellent. And then just one other question, because I know there are a lot of people out there that always, I'd love, they want to start an animal sanctuary. And we've talked about some of the challenges, but I guess what would be it's a different world from when you started Save a Pet. It's
Right.
a lot harder. But what would be just some advice for them to kind of stop and think about before venturing into this, something like this?
Well, certainly financially, if you can swing even just a piece of property with a barn on it, you want to make sure you have enough acreage to do what you want to do. And you got to know what the codes and zoning of these areas are, because nowadays you can't go anywhere and just open an animal shelter on Long Island. That's for sure. There's all kinds of new laws. Thankfully, we're grandfathered in, but you have to make sure, like with the Berkshire Farm Sanctuary, I wanted to be someplace that was out in the, world, out in the woods, out in the boondocks, yet somewhere cultural where you do have people that will support you in the community. And that was a big factor. And you have to have a real passion for something. And I feel like if you have that passion and that drive, is it scary? It is so scary. But you got to get good people to support you, good board, and just to take the plunge, And if you fail, when I got really scared when COVID hit and we were doing this, and believe it or not, it was my son-in-law who convinced me. He goes, "What's the worst thing? You sell it." And I said, "Yeah, Pete, you're right. what is the worst thing? We sell it. So that really comforted me. And I plunged ahead, and I'm so glad we did.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. You've accomplished so much, and the animals, I'm sure, are extremely grateful. So
They definitely are. They are a spoiled bunch. So
I'm sure.
we have to come visit them.
I am definitely coming to visit, definitely, and I'll bring some vegetables along for the ride. I'll put all the links to everything in the show notes. But Dori, thank you so much, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jen.
I hope our AgriTourist podcast prompts you to think more about where your food comes from, whether it be your vegetables, fruits, meats, and even those sweet treats. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone you think may truly benefit from or be inspired by it. Visit us at agra-tourist.com. Until next time. As we are learning from many of our farmers and entrepreneurs, strong connections help propel our visions. Through my interview with Lisa Chase from the University of Vermont Extension and Vermont Tourism Research Center, I was connected to an exciting and new organization called the Global Agritourism Network, or GAN for short. The Global Network is made up of agritourism stakeholders from around the world. They include farmers and ranchers, researchers, educators, community planners, policymakers, agricultural service providers, and tour operators, among others. It is currently free to join, so if you have any interest in agritourism, check them out at agritourism.eurac.edu/GAN, or just Google Global Agritourism Network. The link will be in our show notes as well. You never know, this global network may help you take your agritourism vision to the next level.